All right, we are going live. And I'm going to invite our good friend Augusto to join. Survival. Okay, cool. What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday. Hope everybody's having a great day and Happy New Year. We are coming to you live from the Edge Theory Labs HQ. You can see it's an awesome surfboard. Let me give you a little tour while we wait for our friend Augusto to join us. So check this out. We've got here's our labs HQ. So here's the outdoor. So people are always like, "What the heck are you guys doing here?" On the inside, we've got our beautiful black backsplash blue wall there, our new sign that's in, and then an awesome surfboard that my little sister painted. She's super talented, and some cool furniture. And then in here, we got Kat. There's our director of marketing, working away, building the empire. Some office space in here, some cool print, and then there's some fun stuff back there as well. We've got break room, and then back here is the labs. I won't show you too much of this, but we got some awesome stuff happening back there. Sauna and cold tub, and there's Augusto. Hey, man.
Joshua, how are you?
Good. Hold on, let me get my screen turned around. I'll continue with the tour later. We'll do a deep dive. We're actually about to share some content. Yeah, we're just
all good.
All moved into our new place here in Carlsbad, our headquarters, which is really exciting. So, but it's great to see you, Augusto. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Right now, it's for me it's 4 p.m. I'm in Lima, Peru.
That's right.
Yeah, that's where I was born, and this is my grandparents' house. I'm at my grandfather's studio.
Amazing. That's great. And
so,
what's the elevation in Lima? Is it high in Lima as well? I know as you get into the mountains there, it gets really high. But do you know what the elevation is?
Yeah. Well, Lima itself, it's at sea level.
Okay,
the
Lima's
city.
at sea level.
However, within the department of Lima, the territory of the department, you have very high mountains, of over 5,000 meters above sea level.
Wow, amazing. So you know a thing or two about learning how to breathe and learning how to regulate, among all the other things that you do.
Correct. Actually, for a few years, I worked in the travel industry, as a guide, and we did a lot of hiking, in the mountains and also down south in Patagonia.
Yep.
And so yeah, even back then I wasn't so aware of breath and the science behind it, but I think I experienced different things related through experience.
Amazing. Well, I'm super glad that we got a chance to connect here and to share with everybody just joining in here. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and the mission that you're on and what survival apnea really means? I have some more questions to ask, but I'd love to just get a high-level overview.
Oh, yeah, thanks for the question. It really gives me a chance to open up and share a bit of my journey. So, I mean, I was born and raised in Lima, not till my mid-20s. And afterwards, I went on a long adventure around the world. So when I was in Peru back then, I got strongly connected to the ocean through surfing and spearfishing. And from between my late teens to my mid-20s, I got obsessed with a big wave spot south of where I live, where I endured some of the most glorious moments, but also some of the hardest scenarios I've ever lived till present. And
interrupt real quick. Is it true that on some of those big waves, if you get caught under, you're underneath for a minute plus of length of time?
It feels like that. It's actually a few seconds, but when you're caught in those scenarios, it feels like a horrifying eternity.
Gotcha. Cool.
And anyway, that was something I experienced just by growing here and having that connection to the ocean. And years later, I was working in Southeast Asia. It was 2006 or 7, and I bumped into a brochure of a freediving school.
Yep.
And the brochure said, we will teach you to dive down to 20 meters to 40 meters on a single breath. and having the background I was coming from, surf, spearfishing, big wave surfing, I got fascinated by this offer, and I said, I need to meet these guys, you know. So eventually, I got my holidays. I trained with them for 6-7 weeks, and to my surprise, a big part of being successful underwater, holding your breath, diving deep, comes from a mastery of your breath and your self-awareness and control. And so that is a little bit how I got into the breathing world, through wanting to be underwater with more comfort. That's how it all started.
That's amazing. That's really cool. And is it true that, from what I understand, it's not that there's a lack of oxygen. It's that eventually there's a lack of oxygen, but it's that buildup of CO2 that makes us uncomfortable. So is part of the work building that tolerance with CO2? Can you tell me a little bit more about that, the relationship with oxygen and CO2?
Correct. So, of course, for the body to work, it needs a good amount of oxygen. No, like for the machine to keep going. However, as important as the presence of oxygen are CO2 levels. No, for CO2 levels have a very powerful effect on the body's chemistry. So it can either send the blood's pH to the acid side or the alkaline side. Now, for the body to be in optimum function, it likes an ideal balance. It's pretty picky. You know, that's why it has sensors that detect the shift. Very mild shift in CO2 will be detected by the body, and they'll tell you, bro, please breathe now. Or I'm starting to feel dizzy. I don't like this. You know, like depending on what the CO2 levels are, what the pH of the blood is doing. So when someone holds the breath, no, what's happening is CO2 is not being exhaled, it's starting to build up, and this buildup of CO2 sends the blood's pH to the acid side, and eventually your body goes, hey, I don't like this, it's getting too acid, the machine could break down, please breathe now. However, the human body, being the resilient survival machine that it is, it can actually tolerate a lot, you know. Contrary to what the mind is telling you at that moment, your body is really tough. So it can actually endure a lot. And through training and practice, you can teach your body, you can prepare your body to deal with very high levels of acidity, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And from what I understand from breath work as well, is that the CO2 actually plays a role in bringing oxygen into the tissues or into the system as well. Like, it's helpful to help us bring oxygen, because when the CO2 increases, also our body knows that, hey, we need to use the oxygen that we have to keep the body moving. Is that, can you speak to that at all, about the benefits of CO2?
Yes. No, actually the body is a really smart machine in terms, the way I like to articulate it is the levels of CO2 and eventually lactic acid, depending on the activity that you are engaged in, help the body to realize what type of challenge you're going through. So if CO2 is starting to build up, your body goes, hey, this guy must be running, must be climbing something, I better perform better. So interestingly, as CO2 levels rise, it also helps to improve on the delivery of oxygen to tissues and organs.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Interesting. That's fascinating. So tell me a little bit more about what survival apnea is. So you do trainings, what I understand, you do trainings and teach other people how to stay, how to excel in the water sports that they're in, underwater, hold their breath longer. Tell me a little bit more about the actual, what the actual program is.
So having the background that I had, surfing waves of different natures, and eventually spending years coaching people how to dive deep, I come to Peru to visit family and friends every summer. And initially, the friends I surfed with, grew up surfing with, were, bro, you know about breath holds, please teach me something. But initially, I was a little like, I couldn't make the worlds meet, you know, like freediving can be a very calm sport, even though though it's very challenging, it's very predictable. You decide when you go down, how long you stay under, when you come back up, which is quite different to what a surfer endures when suddenly you get caught out of position and here comes a bit.
Yeah.
So
there's no turning it off.
Yeah, you cannot say, hey, please wait a moment, I need to catch my breath. You know, it's gonna come anyway. So initially I wasn't sure how to teach my friends, you know, until a summer came, 2014. I was going there to spend a few months back home, and finally I managed to put something together, and I created a course. And initially, you know, like I said, okay, I'm going to help surfers to learn to hold their breath better in surf scenarios. You know, that's how Survival Apnea started. And this was around almost 10 years ago. And it had a really good welcoming. You know, people were learning a lot. And of course, years after, you know, I keep teaching. I train instructors too. And what I realized I was doing is I was using breathing and breath holding exercises to help people, surfers, build self-awareness, be able to be very fast to read the type of thoughts, energy they are allowing in their bodies, what their breath is doing, self-control, be able to do something about it. You know, if they noticed anxiety coming in, what can they do? You know, with their body, mind, breath, to push anxiety away. How to build mental strength. Sometimes you'll be going in a challenging scenario, and if you are a fragile being, even though you could get yourself out of it, or you could still hold ground, if you haven't built, let's say, inner strength, resilience, you're at a higher risk of quitting early, you know, of feeling helpless. Whilst if you have forged mental strength, you'll feel that you're going through a challenge, but you'll still be able to make smart decisions. You know, so in simple words, with Survival Apnea, I use breathing and breath holding exercises to help people strengthen their minds, get smart with the use of energy and oxygen when they are in an ocean challenge, and also to improve on their decision making.
That's great. Especially, I feel like that's such a big key too, is how do you make decisions when you're under stress and real physical stress? Like a lot of us are stressed out in the day-to-day world with or work or commutes or cars or all the noise, but there's a difference between that stress and the real stress of you're being held under by a wave and you can't get up to breathe, and that physiological stress of your body being like, hey, red alert, this is really, really something bad is going on here and I need to breathe. And so one of the reasons why I love the cold, and I'm curious to get your perspective on cold water immersion as well, is because it can help train us in that way of presenting a real physiological stress to your body and your system to help your mind build that calmness and that understanding, keeping composure in that stressful environment. So can you tell me a little bit more about like what your perspective on cold water immersion is? Is that part of the training that you do? Is that something that you've experienced with yourself as well?
So answering your question, I'll have two stages for my answer. First, on overall teaching people to deal with stress, is the interesting thing I found is that stress is stress. So if I teach someone to get good at managing the stress of a breath hold, the foundations are the same for any type of stress. So once people get good at the foundations of stress management in a breath hold, eventually they'll build tools, skills that allow them to cope with stress in other aspects of life. Now, one key factor that I like to highlight a lot when I am teaching how to deal with the stress of a breath hold is, guys, what I am actually doing is teaching you to remain calm and cultivate presence within. No? Because calmness and presence will allow you to tap into your inner resources. And many times, an external stressor, you know, like could be a hold down, could be a cold immersion, could feel overwhelming. And very quickly, you could become this fragile being. You're like, this is not for me. I am not built for this. However, if you build the ability to hold a little bit of calmness and stay present, that will give you the chance to open your eyes to the tools that you possess within. So even in situations where you've lost control of the situation, it doesn't mean that you've also lost control of yourself. You know, so once you learn how to protect calmness, how to cultivate presence within, finally you are able to cope with a higher level, higher intensity of external stressors.
Beautifully. Well said.
Thanks. Well, like I've been teaching it for many years, so I find that a key part. I mean, what I am teaching is something quite abstract.
Yeah.
You know, hey, like cultivate presence, and like, what do you mean by this, bro? Like, so I find myself figuring out ways to articulate it in a simple way that it'll get people, and they'll be able to practice it.
That's amazing. And that's what it's about at the end of the day, is giving people tools to implement it into their daily life and to understand and to make some of these abstract concepts really concrete. And the ocean and water and understanding your breath and physiology is like the pillar of that. It's the key of that.
Correct.
Yeah.
And now the second part of the question,
Yep.
you know, my experience with cold immersion. And so either a breath hold or a cold immersion, no, a very cold immersion, for the body, no, for the mind, is an extreme form of stress. You know, so the moment you throw yourself into a deep breath hold, or you throw yourself into a cold plunge or a really cold pool, like, there is no way out of it. No, your body, all your senses are there. You know, it's very hard for the mind to run away and deal with something else right there. You are, in a way, you're trapped. You're trapped in a stressful situation, which, of course, it's annoying, it's stressful. However, it's a beautiful opportunity to start working on skills. Okay, my body's feeling this right now, and my mind is screaming this. If you're in a breath hold, of course, breath is out of the equation. But if you're in a cold plunge, breath is still with you.
Right.
So, you know, so you're trapped in the cold plunge. You're trapped in the ice. Let's put it that way. Okay, I can actually take the shortcut and get out of here, or I can use this opportunity to start building some skills. Okay, let's see how I can play with my mind. Let's see how I can play with my breath. Let's see how I can play with my body. And surprisingly, over time, with a little bit of practice, and I like to use the term progressive and playful exposure, you start to open your eyes to the different tools that you have inside you. That, hey, like, last week I could only stay in the cold plunge for a minute. Now I've been over 5, and I think I can cope with a bit more.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh.
And when you start realizing what tools work for you, you realize, oh, I managed to block anticipation.
Yeah.
I managed to block anxiety. I managed to cultivate presence simply by paying attention to my breath, or this or that. Suddenly you start opening your eyes to really effective tools that are not only going to be useful next time you go to a cold plunge, but life in general.
So good. And all those tools that we have at our disposal, you know, at any moment. That's the cool part. And I love what you said about that practice. That, what was it, purposeful and playful, or what was the first part?
The first part was of discovering this was cultivating. I mean, the main line is cultivating presence. You know?
Yeah. And the way that you said that too, about the type of practice to build that being of a playful practice as well, I think is so key.
A progressive and playful practice.
Well, that's what it is. Yeah, of not getting too serious with it, and experimenting and seeing for yourself, because those tools are coming from yourself. So you gotta, it's you at the end of the day that is, you gotta build a relationship with. So
exactly.
That's amazing. Well, Augusto, this is awesome. I really appreciate you hopping on and sharing a little bit more about this. I know we could talk all day. I think we should do a longer form podcast point because I have so many more questions to ask you. So, but for now, is there anything as we wrap up that you want to share with anybody on the call right now?
Like, first of all, thank you so much. For me, it means a lot to have space to share my work and also get to learn about
Yeah,
yours. And congratulations, I think you are making exposure to cold therapy or cold water easier for people. I
yeah.
think it has enormous
Thank you.
benefits. I've experienced it directly myself. So I think for now I can only say thank you, but I am definitely going to take your offer on going on a
Do it.
podcast or
Yeah,
a longer conversation, because I think we both have something a lot to bounce from each other,
totally.
which will contribute to our audience. So I am totally in for
Amazing.
that.
Well, thank you so much. Looking forward to it. We'll coordinate that another time. But thank you, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Joshua.
See you.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye bye.